What if the very thing you've been waiting for, the love, the commitment, the reassurance that he truly sees you and chooses you, hasn't arrived not because he doesn't care, but because of the way you've been taught to approach love? What if the secret to making him commit faster isn't about proving your worth or playing games or trying harder, but about stepping into a kind of intentional love that changes everything? This isn't just about romance. It's about rewriting the entire script of connection, trust, and intimacy in a world that has often sold us the wrong story. My relationship used to be a battlefield of misunderstandings. Two people who loved each other deeply, but kept tripping over unspoken fears, hidden assumptions, and pride that refused to bend. I remember nights when we sat in silence, both hurt, both waiting for the other to break the ice. I thought strength meant holding back my vulnerability, and he thought love meant keeping a stoic wall intact. But then something shifted. I discovered the power of vulnerability, the kind that doesn't weaken but strengthens, the kind that doesn't push someone away but invites them closer. It completely transformed the way my partner and I connect. And that is why today I want you to imagine this. What would your relationship look like if you built it on the kind of intentional love that feels unshakable? Let's start with a myth that has shaped so many of our struggles, the myth of masculine stoicism. For generations, men were taught that strength means silence, that real masculinity is the refusal to bend under the weight of emotions. Crying, weak, sharing fears, unmanly. Asking for help, a sign of failure. This narrative doesn't just trap men, it traps women too, because how can you form an authentic bond with someone who has been taught to suppress the very feelings that make connection possible? It's like trying to dance with someone who never moves to the music, afraid that a single step will make him less of a man. But what if we redefined strength? What if true strength wasn't the absence of vulnerability, but the courage to reveal it? Think of the greatest leaders, the most enduring figures in history. Abraham Lincoln, who openly shared his doubts with his closest advisors. Nelson Mandela, whose willingness to express pain deepened the respect people had for his resilience. Even great warriors of old who wept for fallen comrades without shame. Their strength didn't diminish when they showed emotion. It grew because their humanity was undeniable. And in love, it is no different. The men who dare to let you in, who risk telling you about their fears, who lean into the discomfort of being seen, those men create a bond that is unbreakable because it is real. This is where intentional love begins, with the courage to create a space where masks are unnecessary. And that begins with the power of open communication. Think about it. How many arguments in relationships are not really about what's happening in the moment, but about all the unspoken things beneath it? The text he didn't send back quickly enough. The tone you thought sounded dismissive. The assumptions about why he pulled away instead of leaned in. We fill silence with stories, and those stories become wedges. But when you create a safe space to simply talk, without judgment, without performance, without rushing to solutions. You allow something rare and precious to happen. Truth finds a way out. Active listening is the unsung hero of intimacy, not listening to reply, not listening to defend, but listening to understand, asking clarifying questions, leaning in with curiosity, letting your partner feel not just heard, but valued. And when you do this, something inside him softens. The pressure to be perfect fades, and in its place rises a willingness to meet you halfway. Because the truth is, most men aren't unwilling to share. They're just terrified of what will happen when they do. Will you see them as less? Will you use their vulnerability against them? Or will you honor it as the most sacred trust they could ever offer you? That is why vulnerability is not a weakness, but the greatest intimacy builder we have. To share your fears, your insecurities, your imperfections is not to scare someone away. It is to invite them in. Think of the last time someone you loved dropped their guard and showed you their raw, unpolished self. Didn't it make you love them more? Didn't it awaken in you a tenderness, a compassion, a desire to protect and cherish them? That is the power of vulnerability. It transforms the abstract idea of love into something you can feel in your bones. And when you dare to go first, you give him permission to follow. You say with your presence, I am safe, I am human, and I want all of you, not just the polished parts. In my own relationship, this was the turning point. The moment I stopped pretending to be invincible, the moment I admitted my fears instead of disguising them, he did something I never expected. He opened up too. Suddenly, the battlefield was gone, replaced with a space where we could see each other clearly. It didn't make us weaker. It made us unshakable. And here is the practical truth. Building unbreakable trust doesn't happen in one dramatic conversation. It is forged in small, consistent choices. Engage in regular check-ins. Dedicated time, even 10 minutes a week, where you ask, how are you really feeling? What do you need from me? What's been weighing on your mind? These little windows of honesty prevent big storms from brewing. Practice active listening every day. Put the phone down. Look him in the eye. Show him that his words matter, that he matters. Express gratitude, not just for the big gestures, but for the small, everyday things. Acknowledge his efforts. Thank him for listening. Appreciate his presence. Gratitude is the glue that makes people want to keep showing up. This is intentional love. It's not passive. It's not accidental. It's not something you stumble into. It's something you build brick by brick, choice by choice. And when you do, you create a lasting bond that doesn't just survive the storms, but grows stronger because of them. A bond rooted in communication, vulnerability, and trust. A bond that becomes the bedrock of a fulfilling and lasting relationship. But here's the question I want to leave hanging in your heart as we continue this journey. If the real secret to making him commit faster isn't about changing who you are to fit what you think he wants, but about showing up with intentional love, vulnerability, and courage, are you ready to risk being truly seen? because only then does commitment stop being something you chase and start being something he offers freely. Because he knows that with you, he has found a home. What if the reason so many women feel like they're waiting for a man to commit isn't because he doesn't want love, but because he doesn't yet feel safe enough to surrender to it? Think about it. Commitment is not just about choosing one person over another. It's about a man saying, "Here, take my heart. I trust you with my future. I am willing to lose the illusion of freedom for the reality of something greater." That kind of leap requires courage, but courage doesn't grow in isolation. It grows in the soil of trust, nurtured by the consistent proof that his heart won't be mishandled. And here's the paradox. So many of us are taught that the way to make him commit faster is to demand it, to push for it, to measure love by timelines and milestones. But what if the fastest path to commitment isn't acceleration, but safety? What if intentional love works not by pulling him forward with ultimatums, but by creating an environment where moving forward feels natural, inevitable, irresistible? I remember once speaking with a friend who had been dating a man for nearly a year. She was exhausted from waiting, confused by his hesitations. "Why won't he just commit?" she asked me. I could see the desperation in her eyes, the frustration of feeling like she had given her best, and it still wasn't enough. And then, in one of our late night conversations, I asked her, "Does he know that he is safe with you? Does he feel that with you? He doesn't have to perform, hide, or pretend." She was silent because deep down, she realized she had been so focused on what she needed from him. She hadn't considered what he needed from her to cross that invisible threshold into commitment. This is where the myth of masculine stoicism comes crashing down once again. Men are often caught between two opposing forces: the deep desire for connection and the crippling fear of being judged when they reveal who they truly are. Society applauds the strong, silent type, the man who shows no weakness, no crack in the armor. But when a man is trapped in that narrative, intimacy feels threatening. Why? Because intimacy requires him to be seen. And to be seen is to risk rejection, humiliation, or shame. Imagine this: a man may not fear losing you to another woman, but he may deeply fear losing your respect. He fears that if he shows you the parts of himself he has carefully hidden from the world, the doubts, the insecurities, the scars, you will see him as less, and respect is everything to a man. Without it, he feels diminished. With it, he feels like he can conquer the world. And so, the fastest path to his heart is not to strip away his defenses with force, but to invite him to lower them willingly, knowing that what he reveals will be met with tenderness, not criticism. Think of the great love stories in history, the kind that endured despite storms and trials. Take Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor philosopher of Rome, though history paints him as the embodiment of Stoic strength. His private writings in Meditations reveal a man who wrestled with doubt, sorrow, and vulnerability. Imagine if he had never confessed those feelings to himself. if he had bottled them up under the guise of unshakable strength. He would not have left behind wisdom that continues to guide us centuries later. His vulnerability was not his weakness, it was his legacy. The same principle applies in love. The men who dare to be vulnerable are the men who form unbreakable bonds. But only if the women in their lives know how to hold that space with grace. So how do you create this space? The answer is deceptively simple communication. Not the kind of communication where words are traded like weapons, or where silence is manipulated like punishment, but open-hearted dialogue where truth flows freely. It starts with small moments. Asking, "How was your day?" And actually waiting to hear the answer. Not rushing past it with assumptions, not offering immediate solutions, but letting him know you care about the inner world behind his actions. When a man feels like his words carry weight, he will eventually entrust you with the words that cost him the most to say. And here's something vital. Commitment is not birthed from perfection, but from shared humanity. Vulnerability is the bridge between fear and trust. When you share your own insecurities, your own doubts, your own imperfect truths, you aren't scaring him away. You're inviting him to match you. There is a quiet power in saying, "I don't have it all together either, but I choose to show up with you anyway." That kind of raw honesty is magnetic. Let me take you deeper with a story. Years ago, I met a couple in their late 70s. They had been married for over 50 years, and when you looked at them, you could see that their bond was not built on fleeting attraction, but on something much sturdier. I asked them once what their secret was, expecting to hear about compromise, patience, or shared values. But the husband smiled and said, "She is the only person who knows the parts of me that even I was afraid to face. And she didn't run, she stayed. That's why I could never imagine leaving her." Do you hear the weight of that? It wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone safe. That is the soil where commitment grows. But don't misunderstand this. Safety doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean tolerating disrespect or ignoring your needs. Intentional love is not about losing yourself in the process of supporting him. In fact, it's the opposite. It requires you to stand in your power, rooted in self-respect, so that the love you give is clean, not tainted by fear or desperation. A woman who honors herself sets the tone for how she will be loved. And paradoxically, when a man sees that you respect yourself deeply, he feels both inspired and challenged to rise to that level with you. Here's a practical way to embody this balance: regular relationship check-ins. Not just when something is wrong, but as a proactive ritual. Set aside time once a week to ask each other 3 simple but profound questions. What do you need more of? What do you need less of? And what are you grateful for right now? These conversations don't just prevent resentment from festering. They build a rhythm of openness that makes commitment feel less like a trap and more like a natural progression. And here is where the transformation happens. When love becomes intentional, commitment stops being something you chase. It becomes something he volunteers, because he knows that with you there is no performance, no mask, no pretending. There is only truth, and truth is the one thing we all secretly long for in love. So let me ask you this: are you willing to risk being real? Are you willing to put down the armor, to replace the games with honesty, to meet him not as the flawless woman you think he wants, but as the imperfect, radiant, deeply human woman you truly are? Because when you do, you don't just make him want to commit faster. You make him want to commit forever. And as we move forward, I want to take you deeper into this journey. Because intentional love is not just about what happens between two people. It's about what happens within you first. Before he can commit to you, you must commit to yourself. Before he can trust your love, you must trust your own worth. And that, my friend, is where the real work begins. There comes a moment in every relationship where you ask yourself, am I really being loved for who I am or for the role I'm playing? That question is the silent test of love. And it's also the key to unlocking commitment. Because no man can truly commit to you if he feels he's only committed to an image. He has to know the real you, and he has to trust that the real him is loved in return. We've already uncovered how the myth of stoicism keeps men guarded, how vulnerability becomes the bridge to intimacy, and how intentional communication plants the seeds of trust. But the journey doesn't stop there. The final stage is where intentional love meets self-respect. And this is the force that transforms a relationship from fragile hope into unshakable bond. Why self-respect? Because the greatest paradox of love is this: the more you respect yourself, the safer it becomes for someone else to love you fully. Think of it like a dance. When you know your steps, when you hold your ground with confidence, your partner feels freer to move with you. But if you lose yourself trying to match his rhythm, the dance collapses. Love is no different. A woman who knows her worth does not beg for commitment. She creates a life so grounded, so magnetic, that commitment becomes the only natural response. History gives us countless reminders of this truth. Consider Eleanor Roosevelt, a woman who, despite being married to one of the most powerful men in the world, never allowed her identity to dissolve into his. She carried her own voice, her own passions, her own convictions. And far from threatening her husband's commitment, it deepened his reliance on her. She wasn't a shadow, she was a force. That's what intentional love looks like, not dependency, but partnership. So how do you apply this in your own life? You start by setting boundaries, not as walls to shut him out, but as guiding lines that teach him how to treat you. Boundaries are not ultimatums, they're declarations of self-worth. Saying, I will not tolerate disrespect, or I need honesty even when it's hard, is not about control. It's about clarity. It shows him you're not afraid to walk away from what doesn't honor you. And ironically, that is what makes him want to stay. I've seen this countless times. A woman bends over backwards, afraid that setting standards will scare him off. But the truth is, when you erase your boundaries, you don't inspire love, you inspire complacency. A man doesn't commit faster because the path is easier. He commits faster because the path is meaningful. He knows that to keep you, he must rise. And deep down, every man wants to rise for a woman he admires. This is why intentional love is not passive, it's deeply active. It says, I choose to love you with honesty. I choose to listen with patience. I choose to reveal myself with courage. And I choose to respect myself so that this love doesn't drain me, but fuels me. And when both partners live this way, something miraculous happens. Commitment no longer feels like a cage. It feels like freedom. The freedom to be known, the freedom to be safe, the freedom to stop running from love and start building it. So let me leave you with this. If you want him to commit faster, stop chasing the label and start embodying the love that makes commitment undeniable. Build safety through vulnerability. Build trust through communication. Build respect through boundaries. And above all, build yourself into the kind of woman who does not wait for love to validate her, but who walks into love already whole. Because when he sees you, truly sees you, in your wholeness, in your strength, in your radiant authenticity, there will be no hesitation. He won't just commit. He'll want to commit because he'll know what men throughout history have always known when faced with a woman of substance. That to love her is not a burden, but the greatest privilege of his life. And that, my friend, is the secret to intentional love, the love that doesn't demand, but inspires. The love that doesn't rush, but transforms. The love that doesn't just make him commit faster, but makes him commit forever.